Welcome to Hot Topics. In this video, we're going to review the changes in 210.8A1 through A12 that deals with GFCI protection for personnel. Now, we're also going to review the exceptions where, under certain conditions and certain types of equipment, GFCI protection can be omitted in some cases. And remember, when a requirement says it shall be permitted, then you go to 90.5 on page 24 in the 2023 edition of the NEC, and shall be permitted, you have a choice. You can either do it or you don't have to do it. Shall be required, you have to do it. So just keep in mind when you want to review when it's required and when it's not, just go to 90.5 on page 24 of the NEC. Now, before we get started into the changes, let's just review the 2020 NEC GFCI protection, which will be the same in the 2023 edition in most all cases. And first of all, let's just look at the area 1 to the right-hand top side of the illustration. And it states, in bathrooms and laundries, 1 GFCI protection shall be required. Now notice we can get the installation rules and requirements of these receptacles in 210.52D as in dog, but the GFCI requirements is in 210.8A1, 9, and 10 of the NEC. Now, area number 2 is down at the left-hand side of the illustration, and we're talking about garages. And at least 1 GFCI protected device has to be installed for each bay in a dwelling unit garage, detached or attached, in accordance with 210.52G now is the requirements and the location. And then 210.8A2 is the GFCI protection rule. And then notice right above it you have the attached or detached garage, and those rules apply there also. But notice a receptacle for a charging vehicle, electric vehicle, that's not required without you have an electrical vehicle that you're going to be charging there. So now, getting into area number 3, right below the boathouse to the right of the illustration, we pick up 1 GFCI receptacle should be required in the front and backyard. It can be 6 foot or 6 inches or less from grade, and that would be acceptable. And notice that's in accordance with 210.52E as in Ed and 210.8A3. And now we'll move to areas 4 and 5, dealing with a basement and a crawl space. And notice 1 GFCI protection type receptacle is required there in accordance with 210.8A4 and A5. But again, the requirements for the rule for that receptacle to be placed there is 210.52G. And then, of course, to the right there, it talks about this 1 GFCI protected receptacle, and it gives your section numbers again, and the 210.52G and G3 for basement and crawl space type receptacle requirements. Now, we will move up now let's just move up to the left there to 210.8A7, area 7, and we pick up a receptacle in a wet bar type location shall be GFCI protected. And then, of course, you have the figure loop that in the Stallcup's electrical design book, Designing Electrical Systems, we have these figure loops that just keeps you rolling. Once you look at one illustration, it'll take you through the other loops of illustrations to your back where you started from, so you get the full picture. And then, of course, you have the area 8, Well, you need one GFCI protected receptacle in a boathouse. And of course, you know, that's 210.8A 8 that lists those requirements. Now, these are some of the basic requirements for GFCI protection in accordance with the 2020 NEC. But now notice we have some notes that we review that's helpful. Note 1, there are 10 areas, see, where GFCI protection is mainly required in the 2020 NEC. And then note 2, AFCI protection, we could review the figure 10-25 in Stallcup's electrical design book. And you could go to the NEC and review the requirements in 210.12 would give you AFCI protection and locations. And note 3 talks about bathrooms, showers, and the laundry area, 210.8A9 and A10. And of course, you know the rules, you can't put a switch in the bathroom shower areas in accordance with Article 404. Receptacles, you couldn't put a receptacle in there where you could shower it with water in accordance with Article 406. So those are requirements of the Note 3. Now when you move over to Note 4, it's just saying, hey, all single-phase 250-volt receptacles are required to be GFCI protected now in accordance with 210.8A. You know, that wasn't in the 2017, I believe, but they put it in the 2020 edition. Now, we want to look at our next illustration, which deals with 210.8A3 protection outdoors. And this is where we go to review, you know, you can't have a receptacle, you know, within this 6'6" area that would be your maximum height for that receptacle. Any post light that had a receptacle, it had to be GFCI protected, see. If you had any receptacle up here in the eave for Christmas light decorations, GFCI protection. But then remember, 426.28, as you see in the illustration, if you had heating de-icing cables here, then they would not have to be GFCI protected. They would be ground fault protection of equipment protected with a 30 milliamp or 50 milliamp rating in accordance with the manufacturer for the particular device that you're using. And then, of course, a receptacle, as we said, is required in front and back of the dwelling for easy access to cord and plug tools, if that may be the case. Now, we want to move next back to our first illustration, and we want to look at these exceptions. Now, if you happen to have your 2023 edition of the NEC, we want to turn to page 80. And on page 80, on the right-hand side of the page, I would like to review with you first 210.8A7. And it talks about receptacles with sinks and permanent provisions for cooking, preparation, beverage, cokes, you know, things like that that they may be having. Just handling that kind of thing has to be GFCI protected. Now, we'll move to the exception 1. And you want to, when you review these exceptions, review them. Does it say shall be required or shall be permitted? And for those definitions, you can move over to 90.5 and you can read that if it says shall be required, you have to do it, without there's an exception that tells you otherwise. Shall be permitted, then naturally you would have a choice. That's page 24 of the 2023 edition, page 24, 90.5. Now the first exception that we're dealing with, it deals with de-icing type cables. And we've looked at that, and we said we'd find that in 426.22 is where we would pick that up, I believe. That would be the section, 426.28 in the 2023 edition would be right. That'd be your section. 426.28, and that would deal with de-icing cables where you wouldn't have to have GFCI protection, but you would have to have ground fault protection of equipment on those receptacles to protect those cables under those conditions. And then the exception number 2 deals with security systems. And any receptacle that supplies security systems, card and plug connected, say, does not have to have GFCI protection. The exception number 3 deals with supporting equipment that might have a receptacle that supports lighting fixtures, maybe a paddle fan, that kind of thing. It could be omitted. The exception number 3 deals with that, and notice it does say it shall be permitted to omit it, see. And then your exception number 4 deals with factory install exhaust fans. And if a receptacle happens to come with a manufactured exhaust fan, then it would be permissible not to provide GFCI protection for that particular outlet that comes with a manufactured exhaust fan. Now, those 4 exceptions have been revised. They're changes, and they need to be reviewed if you're not going to provide GFCI protection, for all these outlets in 210.8A1 through A12. My name is James Gray Stallcup, and thank you for reviewing this video. And if you think these videos are any helpful to you at all, well, hit that subscribe button and the notification, and they'll automatically come to you. Now, next week, we're going to review 210.8B, and what about those exceptions to the rule that's in 210.8B for other than dwelling units. Have a nice day.